So hi, hello and welcome again, and in this video I want to talk about multiple choice exams, and I want to give you some advice so that you have an easier time in answering multiple choice questions. First of all, I want to say that multiple choice exams can be quite challenging, and one of the reasons is that sometimes the way that the questions are worded is different than the way that you studied the information in the first place. So this means that multiple choice exams, sometimes they kind of set you up for something, and if you're not used to the way that the questions are written, then it can be considered quite difficult. And in order to minimize the problems here, I have a whole bunch of recommendations that I would like to share with you. And the first recommendation actually does not have to do anything with answering the question itself, but actually is related to the way that the multiple choice exam is marked, because this determines a little bit your strategy that you're going to use. If, for example, you do not answer a question, if you simply leave it blank, does it count the same as if you answered it wrong? You have to find this out, because in some cases, if you leave it blank and do not answer it, then you actually do get some credit for it, but if you answered wrong, then you get points taken off. So this could be one thing that you have to figure out. Or is it possible to have more than one correct answer? Is it possible that you're allowed to make 2 X's on the answer sheet, or does this is it automatically wrong? So you have to first figure out the marking format and the assessment system of the multiple choice exam, because this determines a little bit also your later strategy. But now let's dive in a little bit into the actual examination itself. First recommendation, do some time management. What you have is you have a certain number of questions. Let's say you have 30 questions, 30 multiple choice questions. You have 45 minutes time. Then you do your math, and then this tells you that you have about 1.5 minutes per question. Okay, it's really important, because in a multiple choice exam, all the questions are generally the same worth. And if you spend now too much time on one question, then it might not be worth it. Okay, so do your time management first. And when you start to read through the questions, do the following. Force yourself to read every question several times before you actually start to look at the answers. As a matter of fact, don't even look at the answers at the beginning. Read the questions 2 times to really make sure that you understand it, and also be very careful, because sometimes it's easy to overlook certain words. And maybe you want to highlight some of the important words, and you want to also ignore those parts of the questions that are maybe irrelevant. And then what you do is the following: is you do not look at the answers yet, but you try to come up with the answer first in your head. And then you go through all of the possible answers and you start to eliminate. So usually what students tell me is, well, I will look for the answer that sounds correct. But be careful. Often multiple choice exams, all of the answers kind of sound correct. Okay, it's not always like this, that the only one answer kind of jumps out and that's going to be the correct one. Okay, so first of all, come up with the answer in your head, and then read through all of the given possible answers and start to eliminate. And be aware that even if one part of the answer is wrong, then the whole answer can be wrong. Okay. And then you eliminate first, and then if of the remaining questions, if the one is the one that kind of matches what you've actually decided to be the answer, then that's most likely the correct answer. Now, if you were able to eliminate, let's say there are 4 possibilities, and you were able to eliminate 2 of the possible answers, and you cannot decide between the remaining 2, then I would suggest that you simply leave it as it is and that you return later. The reason is because it could be that a later question gives you some kind of a hint to the first one. And last but not least, also do a common sense check. Sometimes students respond very intuitively. There was cases where there was actually a small math problem to be solved, and then the students immediately started to calculate, but actually it turned out that you could solve the question even by common sense, because of the 4 answers given, only one of them really made sense. So my advice is do a common sense check. Do not automatically start to do the calculations, but think first what some of the possible answers could be. Yeah, and then last tip that I want to give you, please be careful when transferring your answers to the answer sheet. I will tell you something that's happened already before. often the answer booklet or the answer sheet is separate from the question booklet. And what can happen is that sometimes students will first try to cross out and answer the question on the question booklet first, and then during the last couple of minutes they want to transfer the answers over to the answer sheet. Yes, it has happened that students unfortunately skipped one row and got all of the questions wrong from that point onwards. Okay, so you be very, very careful and try to put the X or try to write down the letter in a very deliberate way, and always double check that you do not make any mistakes in that respect. And there's one thing that I really do not understand, and this has happened quite often already, and sometimes students simply leave some questions blank. They don't put down any answer at all because they can't decide. It's going to be wrong in most cases anyway, of course, depending on the test format that you're using, but if you just leave it blank, you can lose points. So you might as well simply eliminate first and guess. And I do not understand why so many students are not going to do that. So these were a couple of tips that I wanted to share with you. If you like these type of videos giving you examination and study advice, then please do consider subscribing. I'll be uploading more videos in the future as well. And I wish you all the best and see you around next time. Bye bye.